Welcome to another Doggone Podcast here in the CEC studios. I'm your host, Mike the Mad Dog, and today's episode is sponsored by McCoon's Funeral Home and Crematory. We'd like to thank them for sponsoring this episode. And today, my guest is Mr. Coach Pete Cordelli. He is a head coach for Kent State, and he also was a part of the 1988 National Championship for Notre Dame. He has 30 years of experience in coaching. I'd like to welcome you on here today, Mr. Pete Cordelli. How are you, sir?
Thank you, Mike. It's great to be with you, man.
Listen, I can't thank you enough, Coach. It means so much that you actually came on this podcast with me today.
Happy to be doing it, especially after that big Georgia dog win in Knoxville, man. That was fun.
I got to tell you, let's just go ahead and jump into that because I've got a million questions for you. That game had some of the best quarterbacks play on both teams. And I want to start off with Tennessee. Tennessee's quarterback, I mean, Joey, he was incredible. Yep. I thought he commanded that offense. He stepped into Josh Heupel's offense like he's been running it for 20 years. How exactly can a quarterback come in and pick up the offense that well and just, play the way he did?
I'll say this about Joey. His junior year at Appalachian State, he had a pretty good year. And he was surrounded by a good offensive line, some good wide receivers. But his last year there, they lost a bunch of offensive players, and they really struggled with scheme, with having some playmakers, and then he ends up transferring out to UCLA. He's been around the game a long time, very coachable. When Nico left Tennessee, the first call Josh Heupel made was to the Hoover kid at TCU. Hoover then said, no, I'm going to stay here with my guys. And then he said, I'm going after Joey. But Joey has shown through the summer and through camp that he can fit into Josh's offense because he can deliver the deep ball with accuracy, but he also can make plays with his feet. And that's what Josh is looking for. Nico didn't do that a lot last year. They didn't run him very much. Joey gives you the quarterback run option along with the accuracy on the deep ball, which Tennessee, with those wide splits of those wide receivers, making you defend the width of the field before the ball snapped, it puts your defense in some conflict right there. And then you got a big receiver like Brazel who goes up and makes those catches. But that opening drive by Tennessee, it was kind of like, whoa, wait a minute. This is going to be a shootout here in Knoxville today.
That opening drive looked effortless. I mean, he made it look very easy. He drove down the field, no interceptions, no drop passes, very good, and just waltzed right into the end zone at the end. And then I knew for a fact, I was like, if we don't answer this, we're going to be in trouble. And then, sure enough, Georgia comes right back, goes right down the field, big throw to start off the drive. And then, run plays, and it gets right in there. And then, the same play almost, Georgia's quarterback waltzes right into the end zone. We got Gunnar Stockton walking right in.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting watching the coverage that Georgia was playing. They were putting their corners on an island with one-on-one situations, and Aguilar read it pretty well. There was a debatable pass interference call where Brazel got his hand up on the shoulder pad of the corner, and the officials let him play. There was a lot of hand fighting going on, but that kid to make the catch through contact, that was big time. Gunnar Stockton in the first quarter, Gunnar was 4 of 8 throwing the football. Mike, the rest of the game, he went 19 of 23. He had 1 incompletion in the second quarter, 1 incompletion in the third, and then 2 in the fourth. That is one heck of an afternoon for Gunnar Stockton, who everybody said, well, can he do it when it's necessary? Gunnar Stockton answered all those questions, and especially with 2 minutes, 32 seconds to go, and he makes the throw on 4th down to Humphreys in the corner of the end zone. Game's on the line. It doesn't get any bigger than that. But then he has to come back, and he completes the pass to Branch for the 2-point play to tie it. Those 2 plays right there, I mean, that just tells you what kind of competitor Gunnar Stockton is.
Yeah, I mean, and it's his first SEC. Not only is it his first SEC game, it's his first road game in the SEC, and you don't get much more hostile than Knoxville. Yeah. I'm saying Neyland Stadium. I've personally been there. You don't get any more. You can't hear yourself think. It's so loud when those people are screaming. And Gunnar gets in there and he takes care of it. Now, did we see him? You were talking about in the first half, his stats and everything. Did we see him grow up during this game? Did we see him mature as the game went on? And what did he take away that could help him in future games in the SEC?
Well, there's no doubt because Tennessee defensively, they're one of the better defenses in the SEC. And he's going to be able to recognize coverage, but also third downs, the conversions that they made to keep drives alive. You know, Georgia had the ball for 14 drives in that game, and they scored on 8 of them. So as a quarterback, he's learning, all right, first, it's a pre-snap read. Is the middle of the field open or closed? And what I mean by that is between the hashes, if there's a safety in the middle of the field is closed. Now you look to corner leverage. If the corners are off, you're probably getting zone unless they bait you. If the corners are up, it's cover one. It's man free. All right. Now, if you look and then the middle of the field is open, which means there's safeties on both hashes, but nobody in the middle. Corners are up. It's too deep coverage, but they can spin the safeties. So that's pre-snap. Post-snap, though, how do they react? And Gunnar Stockton, he grew up rapidly and correctly as this game went on. And I promise you, in 2 weeks or in not this weekend, next weekend, when Alabama comes to town, Kane Womack's going to try to confuse them with the Alabama defense. But Gunner's seen it, and he knows how to execute and get the ball going. There was some talk before the game that Gunner might have been holding the ball a little bit too long in the pass game before he got it out. He showed none of that on Saturday. I mean, he got 1, 2, 3 ball out on rhythm, on time, in rhythm, and the receivers were doing a nice job of catching it. And how about Branch? I mean, my gosh, he can score from anywhere on the field. So what a great weapon. And the other thing is, through 3 games now, Gunnar Stockton's completion percentage is at 71%. What that tells you is the Georgia receivers are catching the ball this year and not having the drop problem they had last year.
No, man, yeah, because I can't handle another season like that. I mean, you could have made a drinking game out of that. Every time they drop a ball, take a drink. It was insane. I could not even talk about that. I was so upset during all that. But let me ask you something. As a former offensive coordinator, what do you think about all the criticism of Mike Bobo? Did he prove everybody wrong during this Tennessee game?
Oh yeah, I mean, look, you're quality opponent. You're on the road. It's loud as heck. You know, you're trying to get the right call in there. But Tennessee was going to, on defense, you have to make a commitment. Take away the strength of the other team. Georgia's strength, as long as Kirby has been there, has been the run game. So Tennessee was saying, look, Gunner, we're going to put more guys in the box than you can block. Let's see if you can check out and get to the right play. Mike Bobo knew that. But every quarterback has the ability to check out of a bad play into a good play. The quarterback run game with Gunnar Stockton now becomes a huge part of this offense. We saw him score a touchdown on it. And Mike Bobo knows that with Nate Frazier and some of those other guys, Bowen, Phillips, I mean, they've got some pretty good running backs in there. But this offensive line's going to get better. But Mike Bobo knew exactly what he was doing. Mike is a veteran guy. And you're going to have games like this. But when you can go on the road in the SEC in a hostile environment and get the win, that's huge. That is huge.
Oh, yeah. I agree. Bobo's proven time and time again that he can score points. It's just a matter of, to me, before this, even when he was with Mark Richt, but to me, he never had a defensive coordinator that could actually stop people, make people go 3 and out. Because he proved that, you know, he'd lose ball games 38-35, or like, you know, or 44-41, like Tennessee did. He would be in the game. He would score that many points. And my problem is everybody always critiquing him, and I would always say, well, why didn't the defensive coordinator stop him? He's proven he can score. It's up to the defense. He can't coach the other side of the ball.
There's some games that you get into that until you actually see in live real time how physical and fast the other team is, tape doesn't do the other team justice, especially when you're standing on the sideline and you see this big 6'3", 255-pound outside linebacker come off the edge and you're like, whoa, he's a whole lot better than we thought. we better help our right tackle or chip and do some other things. So the first quarter, you're really, it's like a boxing match. You're feeling out the other boxer. You're doing whatever you have to do. Yeah, you're going to take a couple hits, but all of a sudden, the in-game adjustments, and this is where Kirby separates himself with his staff from everybody else in the league. And this is why Georgia's had such great success. There are adjustments that they make to put their personnel in the right position. They do it after halftime. You and I talked before we went on the air. The adjustments they made last year at Alabama, come back, almost win that thing. All right. The adjustments they made in Knoxville. And the other thing that's helping college football, they have those iPads on the sideline now. So you can get there and you're making real live adjustments and guys can see it. The other thing that happens is you always have somebody in a press box looking at the other defense going, who's got their hands on their knees? Who got hurt? Is there a substitution we can take advantage of? Matchups become such a huge part of it. Last year, Georgia didn't have a tight end that really, obviously, everybody knew they couldn't replace Bowers. This year, they got two tight ends that are reliable pass catchers. And you know how much Mike Bobo likes to go to the tight end.
Yes.
That was proven on Saturday. Now you get Branch on the outside and you got some speed. And you got running backs that can catch the football. So all the weapons are there. They're in place. But it's the guys up front that have to be able to get movement when everybody in the stadium knows you're going to run the football. You have to be successful at that.
Yeah, I was amazed that Georgia, with its young offensive line, its young offensive line, during that loud environment, there were no false starts during that game for Georgia. None. I thought that was incredibly disciplined because that environment, you can't even hear yourself think. I told you, I've been in there before. It's insane. And to have them know not to false start. I mean, Tennessee, it was their own stadium and they false started, but Georgia did not.
Yeah, we played there. When I was at Notre Dame, we played there in 1990. And it was the first Saturday in November. We went down there on a heck of a game. We beat them 34-29 and 35-29, excuse me. And Rocket Ishmael scored twice. It was a huge win for us. And it was the first time Tennessee had lost a game in November in like 15 years or something. I don't know what it was. But at the end of the year, Coach Holtz had a team meeting and he said, all right, on the road, what was the toughest stadium we played in? 2A man, 100%. They all said Neyland Stadium, Knoxville, Tennessee. Because like you said, the fans are right on top of you and it is so loud. But you make a great point. Georgia did not have one false start penalty, and that was a credit to them and their coaching.
I agree, and it's so loud in there. Like I was saying, you can almost the decibel levels are so loud you can almost feel the earth shake beneath your feet. And exactly. Like I said, when I've been in there, I was sitting next to someone. I was talking to him. I couldn't hear him. You might as well write something down and just hand it to him. And I said before the podcast previous to this, I said that if Georgia doesn't shut them off quick, if they don't shut them down quick and leave them in this game the entire time, it's going to be a long night. And, it was a shootout. That crowd was in it to the very end, and Georgia still managed to come out on top. I thought that was incredibly disciplined because that's beyond hostile environment.
When you play on the road, the biggest thing you want to do is score early and try to take the home crowd out of it.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, at the end of the first quarter, it's Tennessee 21, Georgia 7. But from then on, Georgia outscored Tennessee in the second, third, fourth, and the overtime quarter. So, obviously, to win the game. But when Josh Heupel didn't go for the end zone and settled for the field goal, it felt like the whole momentum shift occurred. Like, here's your shot. Brazel's made some catches. They're going to throw one up and let the big receiver go over the small corner. And they didn't do it. And right then and there, and then they get the false start penalty and move the field goal kicker back 5 yards. And, man, he looked nervous.
Yeah,
he looked nervous.
He looked beyond nervous, and it seemed like Heupel almost froze out his own kicker the way he was doing that. I mean, he didn't help his kicker out at all. No. And the kid looked nervous. He looked 12 years old, but he looked nervous. Yep. He was just it was insane. And I was, of course, all Georgia fans were praying that he missed it, but I didn't think he would. I mean, I thought for sure it's not that far away. They did a false start, they had to back up, and I thought, okay, well, maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. And sure enough, when he missed it, and then we went into overtime, I had a feeling that it was gonna Georgia was gonna come out on top.
Yep. I just thought that, when Gilbert, that look on his face when he got backed up, that was rough.
Yeah. Yeah, let me ask you this real quick. Now, since you're a Notre Dame guy, what about that Notre Dame A&M game? For sure, I thought that Notre Dame was going to come out on top of that game. It was at home. I figured they had the advantage, and it just seemed like that somehow, how did they let that game slip away at the last minute?
Well, secondary-wise, they didn't play a very good game. They let some receivers run wide open in the middle. And Marcel Reed, who played at MBA Academy in Nashville, Tennessee, his dad was the head coach at Tennessee State. And it was interesting that Marcel found the openings like they did. I will tell you this. I got a call after the game from a friend of mine at South Bend who said that at halftime, Coach Elko went into the locker room. He's the head coach at A&M, and he threw a chair through a chalkboard. He said, they asked him about it, and he said, I just had to get their attention. So he got the A&M players' attention. But it was a great call. Again, on fourth down,
yeah,
they lined up with the tight end and two wide receivers to the wide field. Both wide receivers run slant and up. And they doubled both guys. So now you got four defenders. The outside linebacker had to run with the tight end on a flat route and out and up on a wheel. And Marcel Reed put the ball right in the tight end's hands, who ran a heck of a route, made a great play. And again, another team winning on the road. That was a huge, huge win for Texas A&M and Mike Elko. But again, it was the second halftime adjustments. The second half coming out and really defensively shutting down Notre Dame. Jeremiah Love had the ball, ran it a little bit more in this game than he did against Miami. But I thought the A&M defense stepped up big. But then Marcel Reed, another quarterback that people were questioning, can he get it done when the game's on the line, just like with Gunnar Stockton. Those two guys came through. Fourth down, getting it done for the win.
Okay, I think this is Notre Dame's second loss. Do you think they're going to make the playoffs this year?
It's going to be hard. It's going to be very hard. They better hope that Miami keeps winning and Texas A&M keeps winning for strength of schedule. But they have Purdue this week. Notre Dame goes to Arkansas next week. And if that secondary, if those issues in pass coverage aren't taken care of, Bobby Petrino with Taylor Green in that Arkansas offense, they'll present a lot of problems for that Notre Dame defense. Again, in Fayetteville on the road. And that crowd, after coaching there, when they start calling the Hogs, look out, baby. They will get after Notre Dame next week.
Well, let's talk about the Florida LSU game. Now, it was a lot lower scoring than I thought it would be, and I was very interested to know. Brian Kelly got very frustrated at the end of the game, because there was problems with his offense. What can they do to correct those problems and get them scoring more?
LSU lost 4 offensive linemen to the NFL last year, and I've been saying all summer, LSU, with the pieces they have on defense, they've got to play defense first, special teams second, then until the offense comes together and all the pieces gel. College football is behind the 8 ball compared to high school and the National Football League. And why I say that is, in high school, you can have scrimmages and jamborees before your actual season starts, and you can figure out your puzzle pieces and who fits where and everything like that. Obviously, the NFL, they have preseason games. With the transfer portal and all the new faces coming into college, you have to be ready to go from game one. Well, it's going to take the month of September to figure out, hey, this guy coming in, he's better than we thought, or, we may have made a mistake on this guy. We don't know how he's going to fit. LSU has got to find a way to run the football with more consistency They've got a guy by the name of Barry Brown who transferred from Kentucky who can fly. They have to be able to get the ball out on the perimeter. Their defense is going to keep them in games, which we saw creating 5 interceptions. Lagway threw 5 interceptions, one for a pick six, which obviously put the game away for LSU. But this LSU offense and the Florida offense, they're struggling right now. They are really struggling.
Well, speaking of struggles, it seemed like, after having struggles with Troy, Clemson winds up getting upset by Georgia Tech. Now, what's going on with Clemson? Because I thought they were going to be much better than they've turned out to be.
Everybody did. The preseason All-American teams had the 2 defensive linemen in the corner and Klubnik and everything. But losing to LSU the way they did, getting behind Detroit, but then going on the road to Georgia Tech, Brent Key's done a great job with that program. Haynes King, you talk about another quarterback that was being questioned about, can he get it done with the game on the line? He scores. And then obviously the field goal kicker hitting the longest field goal, in the history of Georgia Tech football. That was huge. But Clemson has lost their best receiver. He's missed the first 3 games. Klubnik's not playing very well. But defensively, I thought they would be better. And getting the help kid to transfer from Purdue, he's playing pretty well right now, but teams are still having success moving the football against this Clemson defense, and they better get it shored up because right now it looks like Miami and Florida State are the 2 best teams in the ACC.
Yeah, it does. But in the SEC, a game that kind of shocked me, of course, their quarterback went out. South Carolina goes down to Vanderbilt. Like they lost to Vanderbilt, and the quarterback went out Sellers, and I was real high on him being successful this year. Now, what is it that they've got going on in Vanderbilt that's actually got them rolling the way they are?
A couple things. Diego Pavia is back, and you talk about a leader by action. That's Diego Pavia. He backs up what he says. That win against Alabama last year was not a fluke. The other thing is Clark Lee, the head coach at Vanderbilt, he's now calling the defense for him. So he's back in his element. Clark at one time was the defensive coordinator at Notre Dame for Brian Kelly and did a really good job there. Vanderbilt has done a nice job of getting some portal pieces. They're playing really sound defense, but Pavia can make plays, off-script plays, and just a great competitor. A week ago, Vanderbilt went to Blacksburg and beat Virginia Tech, but they shut them out in the second half, had a big second half. They did the same thing to South Carolina. They shut them out in the second half. This Vanderbilt team is for real. And they've got Georgia State coming to Nashville this weekend. They got Utah State. Vanderbilt's going to be 5-0 going to Tuscaloosa to play Alabama in 2 weeks.
That's going to be huge, especially if they manage to pull off another win. Like
exactly.
that, if they're able to do that again, then Vanderbilt is not the team that everybody used to just run all over. Because before, you would see Vanderbilt on the schedule and you just be like, they got to play Vandy. And you didn't even worry about it. You never worried about it because the stadium, every time Georgia went there, the stadium was always red and black. Yep. Their fans either sold their tickets, they didn't care. And it was all filled up completely. I've been to Nashville when the Vanderbilt game when Georgia came there. You can't rent a hotel within 10 miles. Like it's insane how much they're covered.
I ran into a Florida fan the other day, and he said, "Vandy is playing like Florida used to, and Florida's playing like Vandy used to." I went, "Oh my gosh,
that's true.
That's a pretty good analogy right there."
I mean, I don't know what's going on with Florida, but it's terrible. I feel bad. Sometimes I feel bad for Billy Napier because I think sometimes he can do it, but then at other times I'm like, they're never going to do it with him. He's not the coach that's going to be able to get them over the hump or especially get them in the playoffs or a national championship at all.
Mike, think about this. He had a quarterback by the name of Anthony Richardson, 6'4", 240, first-round draft pick of the Colts. He's got a guy in DJ Lagway, same thing. But those guys, one-read guys, and if it's not there, they pull it down and run. Quarterback development of those two have really come into question under Billy.
Yeah, but should he continue calling plays or does he need to get an offensive coordinator? Would that help him at all?
Yes. I think he needs to become the head coach and turn that offensive play calling over to somebody else. Yes, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, is it difficult? I mean, when you were head coach at Kent State, did you have an offensive coordinator or did you call the plays?
No, we had an offensive coordinator because you're as an offensive coordinator, you never get to really understand defense, special teams, and you got to be involved in the whole game and what's going on to manage that.
Yes.
And but when you're calling plays, it's hard because you want to go back and show guys between series what's going on and but you can't because you're watching the defense or you're watching kicking game and things like that. So I think from a management standpoint, that would help the Florida program tremendously.
Yeah, I remember. I remember when Kirby Smart first became the head coach of Georgia. They interviewed him. They said, "What was it like being the guy who's,
Yeah.
you're not defensive guy." He said he put on the headset and he kept wondering who are all these people talking, and then he didn't realize because he was only used to listening to one side of the ball.
Exactly.
And he was like, "Oh, they're all talking to me. Like they're all asking me questions." And he has to answer questions on offense and defensive side of the ball, which is a big change for somebody who's an expert on one side of the ball, obviously.
Well, for Kirby, being a defensive guy, obviously the offensive guy is going, Coach, we in 4-down territory. And you're like, oh, that's a decision I never made before. For Billy on defense, it's like, okay, hey, are we blitzing here? Are we playing zone? What do you, Coach? How do you want us to heat them up? What do you want to do? Well, Billy's over there talking to the offense.
Yeah.
So there are decisions you have to make. Like there's certain points in the game. And like I said, the most important time is from kickoff until there's no time left. The adjustments you make to put your players in position to be successful. So now Florida's on defense and you're going, yeah, I trust my guy. But all of a sudden you're going, hold on here. I just lost my right tackle on offense. We may need to slow this down a little bit more, give our offense time. Everybody talks about the up-tempo offense. Does the defense get enough rest? Sometimes a 3 and out, and your offense has to go back, and all of a sudden you're changing players. Decisions are being made on every play as to what's going to happen next. And that's why I think it would help the whole Florida organization program if Billy allowed someone else to call the plays. He's good. He's a good head coach. He knows what it takes. But I just think right now, him being involved in one side of the ball is not what's best for the team.
Yeah, let's talk about next week's games here. Florida goes to Miami, and speaking of Billy, they go to Miami. Now, does Florida even have any chance the way Miami's playing right now?
Yeah, they do. The Florida defense is still pretty aggressive. And again, they know Carson Beck, so because of the Florida-Georgia games that they've played in. The improvement that has come in Miami is on the defensive side. They have a new defensive coordinator who came from Minnesota. I mean, they are bringing heat. And I think Blake Baker showed everybody the blueprint on how to attack the Florida offense with all that pressure and the disguises and things and putting Lagway in confusing situations. And you're on the road again for Florida. You're going to Miami, in-state. This is a recruiting game.
Yeah.
Because, as you know, South Florida, Dayton, Broward County has so many darn players. I just think if Coach Cristobal can put, as old Spur used to say, 100 on them, don't be surprised if the Canes try to put 100 on the Gators.
Well, Auburn goes to Oklahoma. Now, after Oklahoma's win to Michigan, do you think that they'll be able to handle Auburn coming into their stadium?
I do. Again, another head coach who's back in his element. Brent Venables is calling defense against for Oklahoma. So he's involved, which the Oklahoma defense wasn't so good. Now he's back doing that. And then with Mateer and his offensive coordinator coming over, he's got familiarity. But Mateer right now is playing really, really well. He's surrounded by good talent. He's able to get the ball out quick. He makes so many off-platform throws. But Mateer surprised me against Michigan with how well he ran the football.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing. Auburn will get after you a little bit, but if there's an opening and Mateer runs the football, Auburn's going to have to spy Mateer a little bit and not let him beat you or beat Auburn with his feet.
I'm going to ask you a question real quick.
The other thing is, and I'm sorry, but Jackson Arnold coming back home,
Yeah.
That's big for those Oklahoma guys.
Yeah, let me ask you something quick.
I don't think Jackson left there on the best of terms.
You said Brent Venables is calling defense. Now, is it okay? Is it easier for a head coach who's a defensive-minded coach to call the defense, or an offensive coach to call the offense?
I think it's easier to call defense.
Really?
Yeah.
It gets more complicated when you're the offensive coordinator and the head coach.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
I was wondering about that because I've heard of coaches calling defenses and they seem to be fine. They seem to be much better head coaches when they call defenses too. But everybody always says when you start calling offensive plays, when you're the offensive-minded head coach, then they say get an offensive coordinator. You know.
Well, I will say this. I think Kirby's got a little input into what Schumann calls.
Yeah, I do too. I think Kirby's got his hand too much on it.
I think Brian Kelly's got a little input into what Joe Sloan calls, and that has been questionable about the Kelly calls over the Joe Sloan calls at LSU for this offense. So when you asked me earlier about what does LSU have to do, I think they got to let Joe Sloan call the game.
Yeah.
But I think defensively, and Venables has been so good for so long. And I think it really gave him more energy getting back into the focus of this football team at Oklahoma. But I think Jackson Arnold's going to have a rude awakening coming back to Norman.
Well, sometimes I like it when Georgia's on a bye week because I get to actually enjoy college football without being emotionally involved. I could actually sit back and watch everybody else melt down because their team's playing and, Georgia's taking a bye week. Even though I miss Georgia watching them play, I get too emotionally invested sometimes. It's actually nice to have a weekend off to actually just enjoy the sport.
That's what you love, man. That's why college football is so great. You get so emotionally involved in it. Imagine how those coaches are.
I know. It makes me wonder what the coaches see during the bye week, too. I know they're practicing with the team, but you got to know at night they're probably watching some games, too.
Oh, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. But the one thing I will say during an open week, it's the best time to go back and self-scout your own team.
Yeah.
Like after 3 games. All right, what are we doing that's good? What are we doing that do we have too much in? I know this, after 3 games, we always used to go back and eliminate. We felt like our play sheet might have been too long in some games. And now with new guys in the transfer portal, all right, who's grasping the concept and what we're doing quicker than others? And so after 3 weeks, you really have a chance to narrow down and find an identity. Everybody uses that term. What's your identity? Well, now you've got a little sample size. And that's why I say college football is behind the 8 ball, where in high school, you have the scrimmages and the jamborees. In the NFL, obviously, you know who your guys are, and then you get down to your 53-man roster. But in college, you better be ready to go, man. And so after 3 weeks, you have to self-scout and reevaluate where you are offensively, defensively, special teams, and health-wise. What's your status injury-wise? Who do you have as starter? Who are you holding out? It came out this week that Garrett Nussmeier has an upper torso injury. And it's like, do what?
Yeah.
So now, I can't remember. They've got a cupcake coming in this weekend, and then they have an open date. So I wouldn't be surprised to see the backup quarterback get a lot of snaps this week.
Well, Coach, before we close out, why don't you tell us about the book you have on Amazon? I want everybody to know about it.
Making a Grade. This is a book that I put together a year ago, and you can go to Amazon and you can order it on Amazon. Go to makingthegrade.a.co. But it's something that in all my years of coaching, Mike, I want to give something back.
Yes.
And I don't think there's enough parents, players, and it's mostly for high school and younger players, how you're going to be evaluated as you go on with your career. And I want guys to earn scholarships. Not everybody's going Division I, but I don't want anybody to have college debt. So if you're good enough at football, make that college pay for it. And so I wrote this book about position specifics, about what people are looking for. And I don't think that enough young people understand once you start 9th grade, the NCAA considers you a recruitable athlete. And we have guys that play in ninth grade, they're enjoying it, 10th grade, enjoying it. And then the junior year, they go, I'm pretty good at this. I want to go to college. Well, the first thing college coaches do, first thing I had to do when I walked into school, if I'm recruiting you, Mike, I had to go look at your transcript. And it's like, and it starts in ninth grade. So don't be late to the party. Make sure you understand what you're doing. And I don't think a lot of parents, or especially as many single parent moms and dads are out there, or kids being raised by relatives, grandma, grandpa, auntie, uncle, whoever. So understand there's an opportunity to get your college paid for, but you have to take care of your business in the classroom as well as on the field, because people are going to be grading you in both areas.
Well, I appreciate your time, Coach, and thank you for coming on here today.
Thank you so much for asking me. This has been fun, man. Are we done?
We are absolutely wrapped up. I think they are actually talking in my ear that we need to wrap this thing up.
You do a great job, brother.
I appreciate your time. I'd love to have you on again if that's possible.
We'll do it whenever fits your schedule. Yes, sir.
Coach, I want to appreciate your time for coming on here today. And I'd like to thank our sponsor, McCoon Funeral Home and Crematory. And I'd like to thank everybody else who's watching. And this has been another Doggone Podcast. And doggone it, I'm out.